Excellent. Hi, welcome, Ahmed. So excited to have you here on OpenHomies, the podcast.
Shannon, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very honored. And I will tell you how impressed I am as we talk during this podcast about what you've done. You guys have done. Um, I think we've spoken a few times before, but I finally got a chance to go and dig into your SDK and your portal, and I can tell you that I was floored. But I'll tell you more.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we've been working hard on it, and I think it's so exciting being at the cutting edge of voice AI, and that's really the intention behind this podcast as well. We called it Open Homies for friends of the industry and the space to really talk about what is happening with AI, with technologists and creatives, and primarily with folks who've played a big role in the industry. You yourself have had a pretty wild story over quite the period of time, accumulating now in your role as CEO of Witlingo, but formerly in 2015, you were the head of product for Amazon Echo and the smart home. So it was really, really exciting to see that and see the work that you did with launching skills. So I'm excited. I would love to hear more, for our guests as well, a little introduction to your story and hear how you got here.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, so I have always been in, let's call it the human language technology world, right? So, human language technology is natural language, speech recognition, text to speech, all of that since way back, since in the late 90s when it was really like an impossible mission, right? And where the only place where you could actually make a living with voice is through those very awful things that when you call a bank and it talks to you, right? That was the extent of the technology where we could go. Things started changing with Siri in, what is it, 2010 or 2011, with the 4S or S4, the iPhone. It came out and it was really a game changer. Finally, voice was something that you could use in your daily life to do things, and that was a turning point. And so throughout that period, I've been involved, right, building whether on IVR, whether on the iPhone, and then after that it became applications within the iPhone itself, and then went into Google, so you could build all kinds of experiences, actually mobile apps, right? And then the Echo came in 2014, 15. That was another game changer for sure because the Siri was on the phone, right? So you hold and you talk. Whereas with Alexa, it's far field. You talk to it from with eyes free, hands free, and that's a big promise of voice is being able to do things without touching anything or looking at anything, right? When you're in the kitchen, wherever, there's a whole world of use cases where you can use voice to enable you to do things because your eyes are busy or your hands are busy. And so I was part of the Alexa team launching the smart home experience. It was in 2014, 15, 16. And there were a lot of lessons learned that I would be more than happy to share with you. And after that, while there, we learned something very interesting, which is the early adopters were not youngsters; they were the old folks, so to speak, right? And the main
So
reason was,
interesting. It's not obvious. It's not obvious that that's what you would expect with something
no,
that's so
it was a
cutting edge.
finding. It was an absolute finding, right? It was something that nobody expected, right? And what was happening is the children were buying it for their grandparents or their parents, right? Because they just connected the dots, right? They saw that they were having issues with their mobile, asking for the weather, so you could just talk. And it was the thing about what made it amazing is it was performing, meaning the speech recognition was great and was responding quickly, right? So those were the two things. Everything else, like what else it can do and all that, is beside the point. Once you have that, then you have a product. And it was like phenomenal in terms of the takeoff, right? I mean, it was getting like 4.9 stars out of 5, which was unheard of. I mean, to this day, it's unheard of. You get that with a product that the Amazon team did not know what was going to happen. Really, they had no idea, right, when they launched it. It could have been a complete flop. It was in the heels of the Amazon Fire phone, if you remember that. That was a big debacle. And so they were still thinking about, oh, why is it going to be another failure? But it was a huge success. Anyway, I was part of that team. And lessons learned, number one is as far as what was I going to do next is I was going to focus on senior living because that's where really the initial value was. And so with Lingo, the company that I launched in 2016, was focused initially on skills for seniors, and then beyond that, we added a lot of other channels. So that's sort of in a nutshell my journey.
Oh, I mean, it's amazing. And it's crazy to have seen it evolve, as you've mentioned, because I think we
Yeah.
talk so much about voice AI today, but the evolution has really been happening for quite some
Yeah.
time. And, some of the conversations that I've really enjoyed with you is seeing how that evolution has evolved and the different kind of unexpected maybe ramifications of that. So it's quite the journey.
Yeah, yeah. Flabbergasting in terms of, I mean, to be honest with you, I could never have imagined where we are today, which is performing voice, fast, accurate, almost perfect, right? Sometimes better than a human being. And then we have the combination between that and the natural language. So sort of half of my life has been in natural language. So one is speech, the other one is a natural language. A natural language one has been just completely unperforming for the longest time when it was rule based. I mean, you had to build and craft expert systems like tediously. You could have a performing expert system, but it was very limited in terms of its domain, right? To come to where we are today, to be honest with you, I could not have imagined it, right?
Well,
Even the
so
most,
many things had to go right.
yeah,
Near
yeah.
field recognition, far field recognition, natural language, the processing, the experience, the people's demand for it. Like it really did have to kind of sit at that intersection. And it seems
Yeah.
like it's been the work of many, many, folks over the
Yeah,
decades.
I mean, it took decades to get here. I mean, you guys, just to get back to you guys are just timing all this perfectly, right? Perfectly, right? First of all, generative AI. Number two, Amazon just sort of got things ready for you. Mainstream the smart speaker, right? Mainstream voice, right? So now people are not, okay, I can talk to the thing. Of course I can, right? And so now you just, right? I mean, I was impressed by, well, as I was telling you before, I was impressed by your portal, right? How you can, I mean, we can call it a Figma of voice, maybe something along those lines, right?
Yeah, the dashboard that we're building for developers, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's the thing that I appreciated, and I think people wouldn't unless they had gone through my journey is the fact it's talking, and I'm able to talk at the same time. That's a tough problem, at least in telephony. It was a tough problem. Like, how does it not mix and all that, right? And so I was like, wait a minute, and I just caught that, I don't know, like 20 minutes ago. And I was like, geez, okay, these guys are serious. Um,
Thank you for bringing that up because you know what I think that actually was a massive engineering challenge, the ability to the echo cancellation components and
yeah.
being able to have multiple streams going on at once, but those little details, they really matter. And I think that's kind of one of the things that's so fascinating about this medium of voice is there's a lot of things we take for granted,
Yeah.
the pauses, the intonations, the ability to turn taking, and we don't really think too much about it. But then when you actually get into the engineering of it, it's so complex, and it really does give you a very deep appreciation
Oh,
for
yeah.
human
Yeah.
communication.
And I don't think people will appreciate it as much as folks who've tried to solve it. Right? Because the thing about conversation, which is interesting as opposed to say I don't know mobile apps and whatever, is that everybody is an expert in conversation in terms of what we expect. We are expert. It's amazing how much I mean even the least competent of us in terms of conversation is extremely right adept. They know when to pause, when to interrupt, all those things, right? So everybody sort of has expectations that are extremely demanding to deliver. And so I was very impressed by and here's the thing, given my sort of given my past and given my knowledge of the limits of the system, I was waiting for it to finish before I can talk, right? And it was only by mistake that I started talking, and it's only that way that right. And but your regular person will probably start talking because they'd expect it to be like a human being. Anyway, those are very challenging. So congratulations on making a dent and beyond on those problems. Those are very challenging problems. Not
Thank
easy at
you.
all.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think some of the conversations that we've had over time has really influenced us in talking through, the details. The details really matter when it comes down to voice.
Yeah.
I know you had published a book that talk about that. Let me see if I could pull it up here. The elements of voice first style. Actually, I read it, got it off of Amazon, and I think it goes into extreme detail around the nuances of what is necessary from an engineering and product experience when it comes to voice. And what I think is so interesting about the book itself is you are not just talking about what's happening now with voice AI. You've been talking about this for the last few decades in your work.
Forever.
Yeah. It's fine, and we're still trying to solve so many of the things that you've mentioned as critical challenges, but also opportunities. And that's one of the things that we've really taken inspiration at OpenHome is how do we get that communication to be as easy as possible so that people can then now unlock voice and actually start to build in the real world and interact with devices and finally get to that point where things are starting to feel a little bit more seamless.
Yeah, yeah. And my feeling is that just as it was beyond my imagination that we would be here where we are, even though I've been involved in the field and so on. I believe that it's beyond our imagination where we're going to be, say, 10 years from now, or even 5 years from now, right? Given that, there's acceleration around. So many amazing things are now coming together, right? And so that I think it's just going to be beyond what we're thinking right now. I think we can try to imagine it, and it's good. But yeah, some very exciting times. You guys picked just the perfect moment to make a move.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate it. I think that everything is converging. I think people are finally ready, much in part due to the smart speakers that came before us, the predecessors, and the huge amount of advancements that have happened because of it. We talk a lot now about how exciting it is and how many people are coming into the industry and really excited to take on the challenge. But back in 2015, it seemed like that excitement was equally as interesting, and it did bring also a lot of folks. I'm curious to hear your take on what that time period was like. You were leading a team of engineers and marketers and folks when you were launching Amazon's smart home, and what was the feeling at that time period around technologists, and what was that work like?
Yeah. No, I mean, in the world of voice, right? The fact that now there is a performing smart speaker, eyes free, hands free, performing, right? I remember the very first time I had sort of like, just to show you how much of an impact that moment. I remember the room. I remember the set. I can see it right in my mind's eye. How when I interacted with the very first time with Alexa, right, and how I was just floored by it, completely floored, right, just like that, and it understood everything.
You just got it. You're like, wow, this is
insane. And this
insane.
is from a distance, right? So this is somebody who has been struggling forever with all kinds of dictation and all that. And here it is, eyes free, hands free, and I don't have to push a button. I just talk to it. So the excitement was thick in the air. First of all, in terms of this, the voice speech community, right? It was clearly, this is a moment. This is an important turning point, finally, because in the world of voice, there's this joke, next year is when thing is going to happen, and since the 90s, because we all knew, like, if we get to that point, everybody's gonna love it, right? If we get to that point, but getting to that point was so. When Alexa came out, when Amazon Echo came out, everybody realized this was that moment, finally, right? And so everybody was extremely thankful that Amazon did what they did, because it's completely out of left field, right? For whatever reason, they nobody knows really why they did it, to be honest with you, right? But they did it. I mean, there were some, they said they want to do it for commerce and so on, but it hasn't panned out. But the fact that they did it was a game changer for real. And what's interesting is a year after, immediately Google, like, they got in. They wanted to have their own smart speaker immediately, like it was the year after. In fact, they were first. They launched first their skill store, so to speak. They called it Actions at the time, before the Amazon, and it was just a competition between the two for 4 or 5 years, like how many actions, how many skills. Which was unfortunate, to be honest with you, because the number of skills is not a reflection of the quality. But it's important, I think, to note that moment was exciting, was a turning point. It created it mainstreamed. I would say it mainstreamed the concept that you can talk to a thing and it can talk back to you. That concept was completely foreign. Wasn't completely foreign with Siri. You could do that. So it's interesting. Like Siri prepared Echo. Echo has prepared for you guys to come in and sort of take it to the next level. And before Siri, it was things that you could do dictation, in very tedious ways, but there was value there. So there are turning point, but I think you guys are a turning point. You are coming in at the right time, perfect
I think
timing.
so. I mean, I think we had a version of, my version of what that feeling that you had mentioned about, wow, light bulb. I really understand how much the field is advancing and how the world has really changed. For me, was we were prototyping at a hacker house and we were building out MVPs and testing things out. And my co-founder, he's a CTO, he built the very first talking interface for OpenHome. And then to show the demo, he made an AI twin of me. And that was the very first time I had ever talked to AI, and it was talking to myself. And it just like blew me away, and I had this moment where it's like, I'm an avid reader. I grew up on sci-fi. I grew up reading fantasy. I grew up thinking about the future. And then suddenly it was like, woof. I'm sitting in that moment now. Oh my goodness. And
Did
then,
they use your voice?
yeah, got my voice,
Oh boy, yeah. So
background,
that's
had
amazing.
had the initial interaction really curated, and I think it just instantly was instant for me. And so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was funny because we had all of these theses about like where we thought things could go and where we think the future of voice and hardware and physical objects and interacting. But when we released the SDK and we were starting to put stuff out there, we actually found that there was no better way to have people understand what we were doing than actually just talk to an AI. And that back then, like
Wow.
very few people had.
Yeah.
So we used to do these Friday dinners and then have people come by and just interact. And it was so fun because it was folks from all over the industry in Silicon Valley and people who had, seen so much and done so much. And then the first moment with us, the first time they ever talked to AI was with OpenHome. It just like full body chills. And then you could see that light click on. And then it was like,
Yeah.
okay, if this is happening, then what's next? What's next?
What
What's
what else can we do? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's then it becomes a challenge of okay, calm down. All right, let's find
next?
let's find the places where we can use it for real and so on.
Right.
But those are great feelings to have because I think they are moments where you know that with focus and energy and so on, you can deliver real solutions that are impactful beyond the wow, right? And so, for example, in my world, senior living, I know that I can make lots of people's lives better, quality of life, much better, right? Because
Well,
there's no
that's like
lim-
the number one thing I think that people really complain about with
Yeah,
modern technology today is it's not accessible, it's not easy to use,
yeah,
everyone's online on a screen, and it's actually the two barbells, like children and the elderly, that typically
yes,
suffer
right.
from it the most.
That's right.
I think it's very cool that you're
Yeah,
looking for
and
that.
I can see. Probably having spent finally a couple hours on your portal and your SDK and so forth, I'm gonna assign one of my developers to build something, right?
Excellent.
And
Yeah, we'd
have
love to.
them actually, because we have access to lots of seniors, and do something for real, right? Just to see how, and I can easily see people loving the fact that they can just talk to the thing and it talks back to them. Because one of the things they wanted to do with Alexa, which is not equipped to do at all, is to have conversations. Alexa is very good with commands. It's very good for that, right? This, that, right? So short. But when it comes to conversations, it's just awful, and that's what they want to do. Really, sometimes they just want to talk. Sometimes, these folks they don't want to bother their children because their children are busy, to have a conversation about for half an hour, right? And so here, I believe, and I have a few people in mind who complained exactly about that. They just want to talk to somebody and just tell them things, right? How the day is going, what they feel, and so on, and have a back and forth, right? So I think aside from all the other things you guys are doing, I think there is definitely here a whole bunch of use cases that will deliver actual real value to real people, right? In the very short term, like what you have is already, more than good enough.
Right. I think that's a great point. And I think that's a real differentiator of what we're really seeing is how do we take things to the next level. I think one of the frustrations of the traditional smart speaker ecosystem is that it is very command based. It's like
Yep.
turn on the lights, turn it to blue. And if you don't say the command precisely or you don't have the exact action in mind, it kind of gets lost in translation. And so
right.
it creates almost a type of like a micro friction, I think, over time
Oh, yeah.
as people are starting to interact. And it does wear on you. I think
It
people.
creates anxiety,
Yeah.
when somebody's like trying to hurry, especially as you get older, right? You have to take your time to express yourself and so on, right? And it's just the fact of life, right?
Right.
And so having something that is a lot more robust along those lines I think, is a game changer.
And that's also one of the things that we focused really a lot on was what I realized is people have different preferences and for how they want to communicate and in what settings. That was something that I was very, it's frustrating if somebody's a fast talker or someone's a very slow talker, or you want to, let's say you have like a therapy context or you're thinking about your day and doing a reflection. Well, that has a lot of pauses in it, and you don't want a speaker to automatically interrupt. So we actually wanted to do that and created a bunch of settings for, the pauses and interruption and sensitivity if you're in a louder environment, quieter environment.
Yeah, there you go.
So it really sits on the.
That's exactly what you should be doing. Exactly, right? And so I'm very happy to hear that, right? And hopefully at some point, or maybe your guys are working on it, it's sort of after a few interactions, it sort of figures out what kind of a person they are, right? Maybe they are slow talker, maybe they are interrupters and so on behind the scenes, because the AI is here. So, you can do all kinds of magic, obviously, once you've collected a few data points, right? But yeah, no, those are the kinds of things I think that I was, when I was talking to you, I didn't have the full context. Now that I have it, or have at least more of it, I see that you're working on the right problems, right? Those are the right problems. The friction.
Well, that almost implies that you've seen a lot of folks or companies out there that have worked on the wrong problems. Could
Yeah,
you talk
no.
a little bit about what has that been like? And,
Yeah, no, Amazon worked on their own problems, right? Google worked on their own problems, right? Again, we are thankful for what they have done. They have created a baseline of users. I mean, hundreds of millions of users out there, right? You wouldn't have had that without the investment and the scale of Amazon and Google. But what they got wrong is the focus. The focus on get as many skills out there as possible became a race between them, right? Who has more skills, who has more actions, right? I remember in Amazon it was like it was called the cowboy attitude or mentality, whatever. Just get it out, right? Just get it out and then chalk it and add, right? And so we were always in those first few months when the SDK came out, we were looking for that, that hockey puck. Are we gonna have that hockey puck, right? And initially you start like this, and then okay, well, we have the. Nobody was talking about quality, right? Nobody talking about use cases or design. It was all about first let's get the numbers, and then we can talk about all the other things. Well, fine, but we never got to talk to the other things. So that's what they got wrong, is they didn't invest enough, I'd say, in design and in use cases and so on. And they had an ecosystem, right? And they were doing the best that they could to sort of incentivize people. And initially, the ambitions were massive. The ambitions were, we're going to create something like the App Store where people would make money. They would have whole companies, and Amazon had like $100 million fund to fund startups who wanted to do exactly that. But it never took, really, because people just, they didn't feel like they needed to buy these voice experiences. They were not compelling enough to spend $10, or 99 cents a month or whatever.
Do you think that's changed today? Do you think like with AI or with better design that is evolving? Like, I'm curious, you spend so much time talking about design and user experience, and could there ever be a user experience that really was truly seamless?
No. Yes. Well, the thing is, again, the game changer is generative AI. Okay, and then again, for the right settings, for the right context, right? Again, somebody who's trying to learn, right? Perfect, right? I can listen to stuff. I can listen to the thing, and then the text to speech is amazing, right? The voice recognition is amazing. I can interrupt it. I can do all those things. So I can definitely see now that it's that we have something performing and meaty, right? And it doesn't take a lot to develop these things, given that you created a wonderful, tool. So those things, right, that have to do with education, that have to do, I don't know, the use case of business, right? You want to train your sales people, for example, right? And so they want to have conversations with the thing, right? And then maybe you certify them through the personality. I think that's what you guys call it, right? And so, yeah, so those people, they will pay the money, meaning, yes, we have now enough, both content as well as, experience, the fact that we have a better experience in terms of timing and all that for people to pay money. Do you freeze there?
Oh yeah, this is great. This is great to hear.
Yeah. No, I mean your screen. Is it me or is it you? That's
I
okay.
think everything's coming in clearly for me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it's me. Yeah. So yeah, I think you can definitely monetize this now as it is. In fact, to be honest with you, even though you guys are still working furiously, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go, and I think one of the things that you have mentioned so much, both within your book as well as your work today and the articles that you've published out there, is really the focus on the user experience. And I think that's something that we very much want to see more from the community. And in fact, some of the hackathons that have come out were won by designers and artists and folks who were really
Yeah.
thinking about the
Not
experience.
surprised. Yeah. Well, I mean, the key thing, if I were to sort of give you my 2 cents, is okay. So the form factor is key, right? So for the eyes free, hands free, right, where I'm seeing nothing and I'm just talking, it's one setting. Another one is laptop, like the laptop, where I have the thing, I'm looking at something, right? So that's a different kind of experience where I do have buttons and I can do things, right? And so, so it's completely the designer is doing completely different things depending on what form factor they're dealing with, right? So that's important. Or the smartphone, let's say they're doing something through the smartphone, because I think your SDK is channel agnostic, not channel agnostic in terms of the coding, right? It's channel agnostic, or at least
Yeah, that's right.
it's aspiring to get
Kind of
there. Yeah,
hardware, yeah,
yeah.
basically, that runs Linux, that we should be able to run OpenHome.
Yeah, there you go. So that is that, right? But whoever is designing the experience needs to know, okay, what am I designing for? What's the form factor, right? If they don't see anything, as opposed to it's on a laptop, right? How do I design it, right? And so that's the key thing to deliver excellence, right? Is for a designer to design for the actual use case and the form factor, and then you have magic.
Yeah, absolutely. And really thinking through that full experience. I think in the past people were very limited because they're so used to their phone, you're so used to the laptop, but for the very first time now you can actually start to imagine what would that look like. And obviously the home is an easy place where smart speakers already exist, but education, you're doing it now in senior living communities. I think that's a very, very interesting use case. And just in general, like any place that technology could be a lot more accessible in the long run, kiosks in businesses as well. So it's very exciting to see that possibility starting to open up, and it's very interesting. So you already saw the seniors as a population that was really interested in that. And did that come from your work when you were with Amazon? And
Yeah.
how did that evolve?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, basically, like I was saying before, the insight that hey, who's using this thing, who's adopting it, right? It was age 50 and plus, right? And so I took that as okay, this is real, right? It's real. It's a real data point, right? And as you well know, Amazon is very big on doing whatever they do through data, right? So they collect gobs and gobs of data and they act upon the insights. That's their differentiator, right? And so that, I mean, I was fortunate to be part of the team and to get that insight, right, into what's going on. And so we were partners when I left and launched Witlingo. We were partners of Amazon, and that insight that older adults, that's where the game is, at least at that initial stage, right? Because they were the early adopters, and that's where you want to go. You want to go where there's energy in terms of being open to using the thing. So yeah, so it came from definitely from that experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think your point about going where the energy is really important, the momentum.
Always, always.
For us, it was one of those things where when we first released, we asked for feedback from the community, from developers, and we just got an overwhelming amount of folks who wanted to play with it and try it out and had a lot of fun building with it. But in the process, we learned a lot. We learned a lot. And I think the momentum is something that is very hard to recreate. I don't know that, you can really do it other than organically. People have to really want to be there and be very passionate about it. And I think we're at that point right now
No,
with
you can't
voice.
fake it. Absolutely.
Right. Like the possibilities are very exciting.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, even myself, I'm supposed to be jaded and all that, and I was like, whoa, I was really, I loved it, right? And so I can imagine, your regular folks, out there. I guarantee you, we will do a session with, we'll gather some folks, right, and we'll do a session. I will share with you, their astonishment and so on. There'll be only excitement coming out of them for sure, right? And these are folks who, contrary to what people may think, are not afraid to play with technology.
Oh yeah, to be
Especially the
well
boomers. For
fearless.
some reason, the boomers have this thing about technology. They grew up with technology. Remember, the boomers were the ones who started using computers first. And so they've always been experimenters. So those guys, I think they're gonna love seeing a couple of demos, a couple of things that we'll do. I already have a couple of ideas that I
Oh
think will.
man, I'm so excited about it. Yeah, and it blows me away. I mean, people coming from all different perspectives, and that's what's so cool. I think about the little bit more of like decentralized approach is that you really get to see that, you
Yeah.
get to learn from it. I'm curious from your perspective now, like where do you see the industry moving forward, and what are the things that like, make you the most excited when it comes to voice?
Well, I mean, what you guys are doing excites me in terms of what's going to happen in the market. I think I can easily see, I don't know, smart speakers generation 2.0, right? Everybody knows what a smart speaker is, right? Which is fantastic because now, you don't have to do that battle. That battle was a huge battle, right? So
Massive,
they
massive.
understand what smart speakers are. But now it's like you can talk to the thing and you can, in fact, put side by side Alexa and your speaker, right? And people will say, "This is what I want. This is what I always wanted," right?
Right, right.
Being able to have conversations and being able to go deep, right? Meaning it's not just a 1-2, but being able to, and from what I've seen, he sort of remembers a little bit of what happened before. So there's context, there's continuity, right? And all of those things. I mean, with Alexa, every time it's like starting from zero, knows nothing about what happened before. Here, there's continuity, right? Which is fantastic, which is huge, right? I don't think people understand just how huge that is, right? Picking up where we left off last time, right? So you don't have to say everything again. This is who I am. This is what I like, and so
Oh
on.
yeah, because it's so frustrating to have to constantly share that. I mean, you
Yeah,
don't have to reintroduce yourself every single time you meet someone, right? And
yeah.
share all this
No,
context.
I mean, if you ask me what is exciting, exciting is seeing, say, a senior person having spoken to the thing for a week, and that thing saying, by the way, how is so and so,
Right.
right? Last time you mentioned that you were going to this party, how did it go? Okay, well, I mean, I don't know if somebody doesn't get excited about that. I mean, that's very exciting, isn't it? That people can have that kind of, okay, wow, I have a friend now, right?
Right. A
Um,
relationship, yeah, starts to
yeah.
build.
Yeah, and what I'd like to say is this, right? People say, well, is this going to make people sort of like dependent on robots and so on, and being like have artificial relationships and so forth? All that conversation, right? Um, First of all, nobody knows. Number one, right? Number two, when you bring somebody alive who has been sort of depressed and so forth, when they, they're feeling good, right? They will get out of their room and they go outside, right? So I see this not as sort of a replacement, but as sort of a catalyst, right? The problem with senior living is that okay, there's a huge problem of social isolation. It's not confined to seniors only, by the way, right? There's a huge problem
This is
in
something the world is facing right now. It
the
seems like
world. American society is probably, at least, US and Europe and so on. There is this problem that exists that is real, industrial atomized families, and so on, working hard, not having friends or time for friends and so on. There is social isolation across the board, right? Which creates all kinds of pathologies and morbidity of psychologically and so on. And so getting people to at least have a way to not to sink to the level of depression or near depression, right? Having something to talk to will allow you to keep that energy, right? And hopefully be energized enough to be optimistic and go outside and talk to people, right? So it's not a simple replacement. Anybody who says a replacement about anything really, right, is not thinking completely with the full complexity of our lives and who we are as human beings, and the fact that we do want to actually, live happily. I mean, that's an instinct that we have. We want to be happy, right? And the only way we're not happy is when it's just too much of a burden, right? Just too much of a burden on us, and so we get de-energized, right? Or we lose our energy. I see this as energizing people to just remember, life is good. Remember, life is funny. Remember, life is interesting. Ask questions, right?
Right,
And then you get going, right? That's how I see it, anyway.
Yeah, the positivity I think is huge, and being able to spend your time in the way that really matters. I think it's funny because we look at certain things like email, for example, which was created to make for save you time, so to speak, off of writing letters, and suddenly it just means that we have to have faster response times. And
Right.
now with text messages, things are even more.
Yes.
The expectations are so great. So I think that there are some unexpected and
Always.
unintended consequences.
Always, yeah.
But I think we're finally at a turning point now with technology where, with ambient technology, instead of us being in service and tied to the screens and tied to our computers and tied to our phones, maybe with finally natural conversation, people can start to step away from being tethered to their devices like that and actually spend more time in the real world, walking around, interacting, more natural. And if you have technology that remembers who you are and has that context, well, suddenly we're not wasting any more time, putting in all these different actions. You can actually start to be a lot more creative and additive to your life now that it knows what it is that you're trying to accomplish and optimize for. So I think we're hopefully reaching like that turning point where we're really coming through the other side of things and letting it benefit our lives truly again.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I mean, that one of the exciting things about is you don't have to constantly be like this, right? Looking at your
Right.
phone, right? You
Yeah.
can look, you can, It's, I don't know, if you, let's say you want to just walk and brainstorm, right? You can talk and record, and then you go back home, and it gives you a summary of what you said and talking points and so on. I mean, that's the use case right there, right? Where you're able to do something in nature, because when you're in nature as opposed to in your office, your brain functions differently.
Oh, this is
right?
the best it gets right now. Just got to bring some plants inside, but the goal is to spend more
It's
time.
better than nothing,
Yeah.
for sure.
Exactly. Oh, it's true. I mean, I'm pretty excited about it, and I think with what we're building at OpenHome, we're definitely standing on the shoulders of giants in the industry, and hopefully not going to make the same pitfalls, around just trying to go for, as you mentioned, just only being stuck in the engineering components, even though they are such huge milestones,
Oh,
but also really focused on the human components
Yeah.
of making the experience something that people really want.
No, for sure, for sure. I think the engineering issues are the engineering problems are the friction that, once solved, enables the designer to do what they're supposed to do, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you can't have some, if you can't interrupt easily, or there's time lags and so on, then the designer's hands are tied.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so if you could make a call to action now to anybody who is very curious about what's happening with voice AI today and smart speakers, what advice would you give, and what would you say to anybody who's thinking about it?
Well, I mean, I would tell them to go and create an account on OpenHome for one thing. That's one call. That's one call to action. No, seriously, I'm not. I'm not trying to flatter you, because what you have is great. Call to actions to you guys is perhaps keep doing what you're doing. Focus on fixing those small but big problems, and then enabling or adding to your ecosystem designers. Just letting folks know that, hey, technology has evolved to the point where now we can actually make those best practices that we're always seeking to implement come to life, right? Now it's possible, right? So there's a whole world of use cases that were just not doable before that are now doable. There's a whole world of design principles that we were aspiring to respect and follow, but couldn't because technology is not there. For example, saying, okay, you need to make sure that when somebody is pausing for more than 3 seconds, and you know that they paused before, often this is the kind of person who just takes their time talking, right? Before, I mean, right now, aside from what you guys, and I think what you guys are either doing it or on the verge of doing it, I can have it to see, okay, what kind of a person is this in terms of conversation? Are they pausers or are they fast talkers, right? I mean, now you can do that. Now you can design for it. You can say, here's the rule, right? You can say, for example, okay, the folks who are talking as seniors, right? So there is cognitive. Don't put too much cognitive load on them, right? And don't let them speak, as I was saying. Let them talk. Let them take their time. When you respond, perhaps don't respond. Depending on the person, use the cadence that is going to be more appropriate or more adequate for them than for somebody else, right? These are all things that before now were aspirations, right? But now I think we will be able to do them, or we're getting very close to being able to do them. But the key thing is what kind of tools are out there. That's why I'm very excited about what you guys are doing, right? We can always say, okay, we can do it, but you have to be a coder, and you have to do this, do that. You
Right,
have
right.
to be. Can we do it where it's a designer who can do it, right? Can we get to that point? Maybe we are not there yet. Maybe we are. But I think if I'd say the call to action to you is get more of these folks involved. The call to action to designers, just designers, not developers, is check these guys out, right? So just to get yourself into understanding, or at least getting a sense of the future, that it's imminent that we're able to do those things that you thought were impossible to do. So those are the couple of
Thank you for that. Yeah, calling all folks out there who are interested in really making difference and bringing it to their various fields of expertise. I think definitely something, and we're welcoming everybody to really get involved. And I want to say thank you, Ahmed, for joining us today.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal to have you as a guest on the podcast. Your thoughts are always phenomenal, laced with so much history and insight.
Thank you.
And looking forward to everything you have going on.
Absolutely. Congratulations again. Well done. And I'll obviously be cheering for you guys, for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for having.
Thank you.